Yeah.
When you hunt elk, do you kill the animal without much suffering, would you say?
Well, the last one that I killed died in 10 seconds. He was dead in 10 seconds. He literally ran up to the top of a hill. It took like not even 10 seconds. It was like whack, the arrow hits, run, boom, dead. Because of an accurate shot placement. If you shoot an animal accurately, they die instantaneously. They die very quickly. You either hit them in the heart or you hit them through both lungs. If they're alive for 30 seconds, it's a lot. Generally. But there's been times where it might take 30 minutes for them to die. They just lay down and you see them moving a little bit and you sneak in and you try to get a second arrow into them to take them out. Any way they die by a hunter is infinitely more humane than how they will die in the wild. And they will all die in the wild. They will all get old and they will either die of starvation, they'll freeze to death, or more likely they'll get eaten by cats.
Well, okay, so here's where I agree with you, right? Is that when people eat, again, you say don't draw the comparison between factory farming, but I think this is, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said that on Earth, humans are the devils and animals are the tortured souls, right? And that rings true for me, right? This is the worst thing we could have done in terms of like production of our food, in terms of the amount of suffering we're creating.
Yes.
So I think when the person says to you, you're a bad person for hunting, if that person is engaging in buying these products from factory farms, which the overwhelming majority of people are, then they don't have a leg to stand on. What they're doing is way worse.
Right. I think people just say that because they want to have a moral high ground and they haven't looked into it enough. If they did, they would have to come to grips with the fact that this is, you're paying a supermarket hitman, okay?
Yeah.
Are you not a murderer if you hire someone to get murdered?
Yeah,
it seems like you're a murderer. It seems like you'd go to jail as a murderer. It's the same thing. If you go to the grocery store and you buy a T-bone steak, you paid a supermarket hitman. He just assumed you were going to pay him, so he did the work before he got the money from you.
Yeah.
It's like, you wanted that cow dead, right?
It's
You're like, yes, I did. Thank you.
Like explanation, or like it's the same reason why RAF bombers will drop a bomb on a clouded city, but not go down there and shoot a mother and a child, right?
But even though,
or hire the RAF
even
fighter.
Drone pilots have severe PTSD.
Do they?
Yes. Yeah, there's a very specific kind of it because it's like this, you're not totally connected to the act, but you know what you did. And then you'll be haunted. Like if you're just operating a little PS4 or PS5 controller and you're zooming some drone, I mean, that's kind of what they do it with, right? Don't they use like game controllers? They use game controllers, which is so fucking wild because that's the best way to do it. You get these kids you're playing Call of Duty 8 hours a day, and then that kid goes and becomes a part of the drone program. That's your assassins. That's your ultimate killers. And these guys are doing it for real. They're playing a video game, but real human beings are dying. And in their head, when they lay in bed at night, they know that.
Well, it seems like it's an interesting one, right? We just did a big podcast series on the philosophy of war and the history of it and how it's trying to move the person that's killing another person further away from the act. So more killings when you're using guns than when it's hand-to-hand combat. And even in the Second World War, like field work showed that it was about
it's a little more complex,
20 or 30% of people were
so he's got a little joystick.
firing the weapon.
So it's a little more complicated than a PS4 or PS5 thing, but it does have like a joystick, just like a simulator.
Yeah,
like a flight simulator is what it looks like.
But that's
the view. But how nutty is that? What does that feel like when you're in Nevada and you're operating something that's in Iraq or wherever in Yemen, and you've got a drone flying over some compound and you're just shooting hellfire missiles into human beings based on metadata?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how much how severe their PTSD is.
See if you can find an article on it, because there was something that I had read about it really recently.
Because there's a thought, right, which is we seem to be outraged at the use of drones, but it takes one less person out of the fight. And so it seems if you're doing like a utilitarian calculation that it's going to be better on the whole.
No, it's not, because the amount of civilians that die are very high. It's
in comparison to not using a drone.
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80+%. Some estimations are 90% of civilians. It's hard to tell, because what's been explained to me by people in the military is that the people, first of all, the government will undercut the number. They'll give you a lower number than probably is real. And then the people that were attacked will give you a higher number than is real. And so you have to sort this out. Like, like a good example is, remember the New York Times reported that the Israelis had blew up a hospital. And it was on the front page of the New York Times, and they had been told that 500 people were dead or 5,000. I forget the number.
Yeah.
The reality was the bomb hit the parking lot and 50 people died. But they had been told it was a much worse scenario. They reported it, not knowing
the numbers, though, according to like the UN and stuff, are pretty damn high. Though,
oh, they're horrible.
Yeah.
No.
But in this specific example,
one specific example,
good.
numbers are the numbers are terrifying.
Yeah.
But just looking at
from an article, New York Times about their like PTSD and whatnot. This was like just
because they're not deployed. They seldom got the same recovery periods or mental health screenings as other fighters. Instead, they were treated as office workers, expected to show up for endless shifts in a forever war. Under unrelenting stress, several former crew members said people broke down. Drinking and divorce became common. Some left the operations floor in tears. Others attempted suicide. And the military failed to realize the full impact. Despite hundreds of missions, Captain Larson's personal file under the heading Combat Service only offers a single word: none. Drone crew members said in interviews that while killing remotely is different from killing on the ground, it still carves deep scars. In many ways, it's more intense, said Neil Schooneman, a drone sensor operator who retired as a master sergeant from the Air Force in 2019. A fighter jet might see a target for 20 minutes. We had to watch a target for days, weeks, and even months. We saw him play with his kids. We saw him interact with his family. We watched his whole life unfold. You are remote, but also very much connected. Then one day, when all parameters are met, you kill him. Then you watch the death. You see the remorse and the burial. People often think this job is going to be like a video game, and I have to warn them, there is no reset button. Yeah, so it's
awful.
Horrific, very intense thing.